Nobody has ever done this, and that's not an exaggeration. Nobody. Not Roger Federer, not Rafael Nadal, not Novak Djokovic. Three names that between them have won more than 60 Grand Slam titles, dominated this sport for 2 decades, and rewritten every record book tennis has ever produced. And not one of them, not a single one, ever did what Jannik Sinner just did in Madrid on Sunday afternoon. 5 consecutive Masters 1000 titles: Paris, Indian Wells, Miami, Monte Carlo, Madrid. Back to back to back to back, 5 of the biggest tournaments in tennis below a Grand Slam, won consecutively without a single loss in between. That sentence alone should stop you in your tracks, because in the entire history of professional tennis, in the Open era, across every surface, every generation, every era of dominance, it has never been done before. And the way he did it in Madrid made it even more surreal. Jannik Sinner beat Alexander Zverev, the world number 3, the 2-time Madrid champion, the man with a 30-6 record at this specific tournament, in less than an hour. The final score was 6-1, 6-2, on clay, in a Masters 1000 final. The scoreline looked like a warm-up hit between a professional and a ball boy. It wasn't. It was the biggest clay match of the season so far, and Sinner treated it like a training exercise he had already memorized. The crowd at the Caja Magica had come to watch a tennis match. What they got instead was a masterclass in total dominance. A performance so clean, so efficient, so utterly without drama that it almost felt disrespectful to how hard Zverev had worked to get there. Zverev had beaten Mensik. He had beaten blocks in the semis. He arrived at the final as a legitimate contender, a man who knew this tournament, this surface, these conditions better than almost anyone else alive. And Sinner made none of that matter. This is what the sport looks like right now. One man, one level, and everyone else trying to figure out how to reach it. If you want to follow every moment of this historic run, the records, the stats, the stories that go beyond the scoreline, subscribe to Tennis Insider. We cover the game the way it deserves to be covered, deep, honest, and always watching what nobody else is talking about yet. The scoreline was 6-1, 6-2. Let that actually sink in. There's a reflex in sports coverage to immediately contextualize a lopsided scoreline, to say the loser had a bad day, or wasn't quite right physically, or just couldn't get their game going. It's a kind of instinct to protect the narrative, to make sure the story doesn't become too one-sided, too uncomfortable for the sport itself. So let's resist that instinct here and just sit with the numbers. 6-1, 6-2. In a Masters 1000 final, on clay, against a player who had won this exact tournament twice before, who holds 7 Masters 1000 titles total, who won a Grand Slam, and who came into Sunday's final having not dropped a set all week. That is not a bad day. That is not a blimp. That is a player being completely, methodically, almost surgically taken apart by someone operating at a different altitude entirely. Alexander Zverev is not a soft opponent. People forget this when they watch matches like Sunday's because the result makes it look easy. But go back and look at what Zverev did in the weeks leading up to that final. He came through a brutal draw. He played aggressive, dominant tennis. He looked every inch the world number 3 who had every right to be standing in that final. And then Sinner walked out and dismantled him before he could even settle into his game. The match lasted less than an hour. To put that in context, most Masters 1000 finals go between 90 minutes and 3 hours. Some go longer. The average clay court final at this level rarely ends in under 90. Sinner finished it in under 60 minutes. He hit the court like a man who had already decided the outcome before the coin toss, and then he went out and proved himself right. 2 games. That's all Zverev won in the first set. 2 games. And the second set wasn't much different. There were no long baseline rallies that slowly turned in Sinner's favor. There was no momentum swing that shifted the match. There was just Sinner, playing cleaner tennis than anyone in the world right now can play, and Zverev trying everything he knew, finding nothing that worked. The scoreline wasn't a fluke. It was the truest possible reflection of where the gap between these two players currently stands. Zverev said it himself, and that makes it worse. Before the final, Alexander Zverev gave an interview. He was asked about his opponent, about his chances, about what he thought the match would look like. And what he said was this: "I think right now he's definitely the best player in the world. I think I have to play very, very good tennis to have a chance." Read that again. Not from a commentator, not from a rival who wanted to talk up the match, from the man who was about to walk onto the court and play him. The world number 3, a Grand Slam champion, a 2-time Madrid title holder, looked ahead to his own final and said, "I need to be at my absolute best just to have a chance." That level of honesty is rare in professional sport. Players are trained to project confidence, to talk about their game plan, to find reasons to believe. Zverev did none of that. He assessed the situation clearly, said what he saw, and then went out and played the final anyway. There's something almost noble about that. Stepping into a fight you've already told yourself you might not be able to win because walking away isn't an option. But here's what makes that quote land so heavily. Zverev didn't even get the chance to play the very, very good tennis he said he needed. The match never reached a level where Zverev's best would have been tested. Sinner didn't give him the space to find his rhythm, to build into points, to work himself into the match the way a player of his quality normally would. He closed everything down early, took the initiative on every rally, and kept Zverev permanently off balance from the first game to the last. If Zverev had played the match of his life and still lost 6-1, 6-2, that would be one kind of statement. What actually happened, that Sinner never even had to face Zverev's best, is a different and more unsettling kind of statement entirely. The ceiling Zverev set as his requirement to compete wasn't even relevant. Sinner didn't need to worry about reaching that ceiling. He was already above it. Paris, then Madrid. The same story told twice. If Madrid felt familiar, it's because it was. Not in the setting, not in the stakes, but in the pattern. Because this isn't the first time Sinner has done this to Zverev, and that's the part of the story that deserves far more attention than it gets. Cast your mind back to Paris last November. The semifinals of the Paris Masters, one of the biggest indoor hardcourt events of the season. Sinner and Zverev on the same side of the draw, meeting with a final on the line. The result? 6-0, 6-1 in 62 minutes. A bagel in the first set, 6 games total across the entire match. Zverev, fresh, motivated, on a surface he handles well, was beaten so convincingly that the match barely registered as competitive. And then Madrid happened. Different surface, clay, different month, May, different city, different crowd, different tournament. Same story. 6-1, 6-2, less than an hour. 2 bagels and a breadstick across 2 separate occasions, one of them a Masters final. In tennis, patterns like this have names. When one player consistently dominates another at this level, across different surfaces, different conditions, different moments in a season, it stops being about any individual match and starts being about something structural. Something in the way Sinner reads Zverev, anticipates him, neutralizes the specific weapons that make Zverev dangerous. The pace on the serve, the heavy forehand, the left-handed angles. Sinner has answers for all of it, and he's found them so completely that Zverev, who will finish his career as one of the greats of his generation, has now lost 9 consecutive matches against him. After Monte Carlo, Zverev sat in front of the press and said 3 words that have echoed across tennis media ever since. "He's like a wall." That quote came before Madrid. After Madrid, the picture is even clearer. This isn't a temporary rough patch in the Zverev-Sinner rivalry. This is a solved equation, and Zverev knows it better than anyone. 28 matches, 2 sets dropped. The numbers don't lie. The word historic gets used too easily in sport. Every generation produces someone who is called the greatest. Every streak gets labeled unbreakable. Every dominant performance gets sold as something the world has never seen before. It creates a kind of noise that makes it genuinely hard to recognize when something truly extraordinary is actually happening. This is truly extraordinary. Let the numbers speak. Across Sinner's current 28-match Masters 1000 winning streak, he has dropped exactly 2 sets. 2. In 28 matches at the highest tier of professional tennis below a Grand Slam, on hard courts, on clay, at altitude in Madrid, indoors in Paris, the best players in the world have managed to take just 2 sets from him. That means in the overwhelming majority of his matches, including finals, semifinals, and quarterfinals against top 5 opponents, Sinner has won without being pushed to a deciding set at all. For context, a top professional tennis player at a Masters event typically drops sets, not because they're playing badly, but because their opponents are elite. The margins are thin, and the pressure is enormous. Sets get dropped even in dominant runs. Federer drops sets, Djokovic drops sets, Nadal, even in his most terrifying clay seasons, lost sets to opponents who found the right moment to lift their game. Sinner, across 28 matches at Masters level, has had 2 of those moments. 2 matches where an opponent managed to find enough to take a set. In every other match, he has walked through the draw without conceding a set at all. He is now 3 wins away from Novak Djokovic's all-time record of 31 consecutive Masters wins, a record that stood for years as one of the untouchable benchmarks of consistent excellence in the sport. And with the clay season now heading toward Rome and Roland Garros, both without Carlos Alcaraz in the draw, the question of whether anyone stops Sinner before he breaks that record is starting to feel less like a question and more like a formality. The numbers don't lie. They rarely do. The draw is open, and there is nobody left to close it. Carlos Alcaraz is at home. His wrist is in a cast. He will not play Rome. He will not play Roland Garros. And that sentence, 4 short facts, changes everything about how the rest of the clay season reads. Because if you were looking for the one player who had consistently found a way to make things competitive against Sinner, who had won the right matches at the right moments to keep the rivalry alive and the narrative balanced, it was Alcaraz. Their battles at Roland Garros, the tie-breaks and the 5-setters, and the matches that went deep into the 3rd set, those were the fights that proved the tour could still produce a genuine opponent for Sinner at the very highest level. Alcaraz was the answer to the question, who stops him? And now he's gone. Not just from one tournament, but from both of the 2 most important clay events of the season. Rome and Roland Garros will happen without him. And what that means for the draw is stark. Look at what's left. Zverev has now lost to Sinner 9 times in a row and was beaten 6-1, 6-2 in a final less than 48 hours ago. Medvedev has been pushed off clay. Djokovic, at 38, is no longer the force he once was on this surface. Fritz, de Minaur, Rune, talented, motivated, capable of big moments, but none of them have shown they can beat Sinner over 5 sets on clay in the biggest environment the game has. Before Madrid, you could at least point to Alcaraz and say, if Sinner reaches the final, he'll face someone who has beaten him before, who knows how to disrupt him, who won't just fold under the weight of the occasion. That safety net no longer exists. The draw is open in a way that almost never happens at Roland Garros, and the player best placed to take advantage of it is the one standing at the top of the rankings, unbeaten since February, with 5 consecutive Masters titles around his neck. 3 months without a loss. Since February, since the beginning of February. We are in May. Take a moment with that. In professional tennis, a sport played on multiple surfaces across multiple continents against 50 or 60 of the best athletes in the world in conditions that range from sea level to altitude, from baking clay to fast indoor hard courts, Jannik Sinner has not lost a single match since the beginning of February. Not one. Not in a first round, not in a quarterfinal, not in a final against Zverev in Madrid. His record in 2026 sits at 30 wins and 2 losses. Both losses came before February. Everything after that, every match, every opponent, every tournament has ended the same way. Sinner wins. The record continues. The streak extends. To fully grasp what this means, it helps to think about what professional tennis actually requires across 3 months. Sinner has played through multiple tournaments, multiple rounds, multiple surfaces.
He has played in the early rounds where an upset can come from anywhere. A lucky qualifier, a player with nothing to lose, someone having the day of their life. He has played in semifinals and finals where the pressure is at its highest and the margins between winning and losing shrink to almost nothing. In all of it, across all those matches and all those opponents, he hasn't found a single one who could beat him. Zverev said it before the final in Madrid, almost reluctantly, like the words cost him something to say. He's world number 1 and hasn't lost a match since the beginning of February. That quote wasn't strategic. It wasn't designed to lower expectations or play mind games. It was a man looking at the facts and stating them plainly, because the facts were undeniable. 3 months, 30 matches, no losses, on the eve of Rome and Roland Garros. If this is a golden era beginning to announce itself, it is doing so in the loudest possible voice. He's not winning because the field is weak. Get that wrong and you miss everything. Every time a player goes on a run like this, a version of the same argument appears. The draw was soft, the competition wasn't at its best, the opponents weren't healthy.
It's a way of explaining dominant performances without fully crediting the person doing the dominating. A way of preserving the idea that the sport is still competitive, that the gap isn't really as wide as it looks. That argument doesn't hold here, and it's worth being precise about why. In Madrid alone, Sinner beat Jabadar, a 19-year-old who was playing the tennis of his life, who pushed the match to a tiebreak, and who Sinner beat without conceding a single breakpoint in that tiebreak. He beat Fils, who had been unbeaten on clay all season, who had just won Barcelona, and who Sinner dismissed 6-2, 6-4, without letting him breathe for the first 4 games. And then he beat Zverev, the world number 3, the 2-time Madrid champion, in under an hour in the final. These are not soft opponents. Jabadar at 19, playing the best clay tennis of any young player this season. Fils coming in with the momentum of an unbeaten clay record. Zverev with all his history at this tournament. Sinner beat all 3 of them in the same week without ever looking truly threatened. Go back further. In Monte Carlo, Alcaraz, his only serious rival, managed a tiebreak in the first set of the final. He then lost the second set 6-3. Miami, same story. Indian Wells, Zverev and Medvedev couldn't do it. Paris, Zverev walked off having won 1 game in the first set. The field is not weak. The competition is right there. Sinner is just operating at a level that the competition cannot currently reach. That is not the same thing as an easy draw. It is what genuine, complete dominance looks like. And confusing the two is how you miss what's actually happening in front of you. Rome in 4 days. Roland Garros in 3 weeks. The stage is set. There are seasons in tennis that feel, in hindsight, like they were always heading toward one destination. A moment where every result, every match, every storyline converges into a single point. A final at Roland Garros, a trophy lifted on the red clay of Paris, a record broken, a legacy cemented. This season is starting to feel like one of those seasons, and the clay stretch ahead is the moment it will either be confirmed or upended. Rome is in 4 days, Roland Garros in 3 weeks. The stage is set. There are seasons in tennis that feel, in hindsight, like they were always heading toward one destination. A moment where every result, every match, every storyline converges into a single point. A final at Roland Garros, a trophy lifted on the red clay of Paris, a record broken, a legacy cemented. This season is starting to feel like one of those seasons, and the clay stretch ahead is the moment it will either be confirmed or upended. Rome is in 4 days, Roland Garros is in 3 weeks. These are not just 2 more tournaments. These are the 2 tournaments that define what clay season means. They are where the mythology of this surface gets written, where Nadal built his reputation across decades, where Alcaraz announced himself as the heir to that mythology in 2022. The red clay of Rome and Paris has a way of deciding things permanently, of separating the great from the all-time great in a way that no other surface quite replicates. And Sinner is walking into both of them in the most extraordinary form of his career.
5 consecutive Masters 1000 titles, 30 wins since February, a 28-match winning streak at Masters level with 2 sets dropped, 3 wins away from Djokovic's all-time consecutive Masters record, and no Alcaraz in either draw. The tournament at Roland Garros that would have tested Sinner most severely, the draw where Alcaraz could have emerged from the same half and forced a 5-set final on the biggest stage in clay tennis, is no longer that draw. The bracket that opens in Paris in 3 weeks is a different picture, and Sinner is standing at the top of it with every tool he needs to go all the way. The stage is set. The conditions are as close to perfect as a player can reasonably hope for at this stage of a season. What happens next in Rome and Paris will not just determine the rest of 2026. It will start to define where Jannik Sinner stands in the history of this sport.
The real question isn't whether Sinner wins Roland Garros, it's whether anyone makes it competitive. That's the line from the transcript, and it deserves to be the closing thought because it captures exactly where we are with this story right now. Whether Sinner wins Roland Garros is not the interesting question anymore. Given the form, given the draw, given the momentum, given the complete absence of the one player who had consistently found a way to trouble him at the highest level, the probability is there. The path is open. The numbers are pointing in one direction. The interesting question is what the tournament looks like along the way. Not just the final, but the semifinals and quarterfinals. Whether anyone walks onto that red clay in Paris and forces Sinner into a 5th set. Whether anyone finds, even briefly, the kind of tennis that makes him have to reach deeper than he's had to reach all season. Whether the draw produces a match that feels like a genuine contest rather than a procession. Because the legacy question for Sinner, whether this run becomes truly legendary in the way Nadal's Roland Garros dominance was, partly depends on the quality of what he has to overcome. Easy draws and weak opponents are remembered differently than runs built on beating the best at their best. And while the opponents standing between Sinner and a Roland Garros title are not weak by any reasonable measure, they are also without their most dangerous member. Rome and Roland Garros will tell us 2 things. First, whether the streak continues and the record falls. Second, and this is the more lasting question, whether anyone left in the sport right now is capable of making Jannik Sinner feel uncomfortable for an entire 5-set match on the most unforgiving surface in tennis. Right now, honestly, the answer is hard to find. If you want to follow every moment of what could be the most dominant clay season in the modern era, subscribe to Tennis Insider. Every match, every story, every shift in the narrative, we'll be covering it all, from Rome all the way to the final Sunday in Paris.